You're watching a new edition of Interval, a podcast hosted by the Arts and Culture Quarterly Matka. I'm Alexandra Torjoc. I'm an editor at the magazine, and today here with me is Gabor Maté. Gabor is a doctor with a tremendous amount of experience in family care and palliative and psychiatric care. He's also an author of bestseller books that you've probably heard: When the Body Says No, Scattered Mind, Hold On to Your Kids. Welcome, Gabor. I'm very pleased to have you here. Do you feel that for you personally, writing sort of enhances the healing process?
Well, every writing book is as much for myself as for other people. So writing the book is always a learning experience for me. Sometimes I listen to myself and sometimes I don't. Like the reason I have a hoarse voice right now it's because I wasn't listening to myself. I took on too much travel and speaking, not enough rest. So when my body said no, and this is the way the body's saying no, I think I learned to listen. Sometimes people say to me, "Thank you, your book changed my life." And I say, well, that's good. Maybe I should read it myself,
Do you feel the need to reread and to revise maybe some of the things that you wrote?
But usually, the only thing different about this book is I wrote in the beginning that the ADD diagnosis seemed to explain how I was functioning in the world. Well, seemed to explain was a good way to put it, because it doesn't explain it. And I would make that more clear now. So the diagnosis doesn't explain anything. And here's what I mean. Like Gabor has tools out, he's absent-minded, has poor impulse control. Why? Because he's got ADD. How do we know he's got ADD? Well, he's got poor impulse control and is absent-minded. Why is he absent-minded and has poor impulse control? Because he's got an ADD. How do we know he's got ADD? Etc., etc. There's no it's a circle. There's no explanation there. It's a description. It's good to describe things, but there's never confuse an explanation with a description.
You do make several points in your talks about literature and books on history, recalling, for example, how it was that you discovered Discovery of the Swastika. I wanted to ask you something. One of my favorite poets is Walt Whitman. And in his poem Song of Myself, there is a stanza that goes, "Do I contradict myself very well? Then I contradict myself. I am large. I contain multitudes."
That's right.
Do you think that Whitman is right? And if this is the case, how? In what way?
Well, look, human beings are not perfect. And they have contradictions. But they're also flexible. They're not rigid. And rigidity means that you stop growing and you stop developing. So he's talking about the wholeness of human beings and the acceptance of himself. But he doesn't have to be perfect. It's good to think about one's contradictions. It's good to understand where they come from, but one has to accept them.
How do we accept?
How do we not accept? I'm asking you, how do we not accept? How do you not accept?
We resist, maybe.
Well, then you stop resisting.
That's hard because there are a lot of things inside of us that are holding us there to the ground.
Well, here's the thing. You don't resist. There's resistance in you. Do you deliberately decide, I'm going to resist right now? Well, if you do, then you're free. Sometimes we want to resist. The Nazis tried to conquer all of Europe. People resisted. And that's good. But when the resistance happens automatically, then it's just something in you that's rigid. And you're not doing it. It's doing you. And there's no freedom in it. So you can resist from a position of freedom, or you can resist from a position of automatic behavior, and then you're not free.
But I think it's something so long established in our interior lives that we find it very hard to even acknowledge the fact that it's something automatic.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, you always talk about the fact that safety is the presence of connection.
Presence of connection.
Yes, of authentic connection. And when something like this does not have the proper condition to emerge naturally, how can we engage in an authentic connection? Is it something learnable?
Not from a book, not from a lecture, but look, it's not such a big deal. It's our nature to connect. It is. The way we evolved, we're social creatures. Our brains are wired together. Our hearts want to connect. We suffer when we don't. It's not such a difficult thing once you realize it. The real question is not what how to connect, but what's in the way of connecting. Because that's our natural impulse is to connect. Not just with other people, with nature, with everything. That's our nature, is to connect. And if you look at indigenous peoples, North America, South America, Australia, Africa, they're very connected, very social, connected to nature, connected to animals. So that's the way we evolved as human beings. This lack of connection is a disease of civilization and modernity. The question isn't how do we connect, the question is what's in the way of our connecting.
What do you think is in the way of connecting? Are there any social, economic factors?
All that. Well, first of all, you have the capitalist ideology that says human beings are by nature selfish, aggressive, competitive,
Self-centered.
self-centered, and acquisitive. It's not true. If that was true, we never would have evolved because we needed each other in the community to evolve, needed to be connected, and that's how we lived for millions of years and hundreds of thousands of years. Let's start with the ideology, number one. Number two, let's look at how we raise children. Children naturally connect. Look at a baby. They're a connection machine. That's all they do is they connect. That's what makes them so cute. The connection just needs to be respected and reciprocated, returned. And what happens is, and children don't get that, and they're hurt instead, then they become afraid of connection. So if the child is connecting and they're hurt, then they decide that connection is painful. I should disconnect. But that's a trauma. What are the economic factors? There's greater and greater inequality. Like the level of inequality isn't much greater than it was 40 years ago. It's like it was 100 years ago, even worse. In a situation of inequality, people are very insecure. People are always afraid of losing what they have. The middle class is afraid of becoming working class. And the working class is afraid of becoming in poverty. But when you're afraid, you're just trying to survive. So it makes it harder to connect. So there's all these economic factors, personal factors. But the biggest factor is trauma.
I want to revisit what you said at the beginning of the answer, because I think it's important that we see this phenomenon of people coming into clusters. And you've worked with people suffering from trauma and people suffering from substance abuse in Vancouver for over 20 years. And there are places spread worldwide, similar places, but there are also different cities where drug use and homelessness, for example, aren't much of an issue. Why do you think that such phenomena is prevailing in some of these places while decreasing or being non-existent?
Why is there homelessness? Is that what you ask?
Why is it prevailing in different places and non-existent in others?
You have to look at the homelessness in North America is going up. Has been for decades. Because we live in a capitalist system that doesn't care about human beings. I mean, there's all the money in the world. There's all the wealth. So the more inequality there is, the more you're going to have homelessness, the more trauma there is. And so people become suspicious and they want to be on their own. The more homelessness, the more poverty you have, the more homelessness you're going to have. That's just how it works. Societies that are more humane, they're going to have less homelessness.
I want to ask you something about women. You say that they absorb, due to their cultural role, the stress of their family and the stress of their spouses.
Yeah.
And talking about the changes occurring in nowadays society, do you think that the changes in gender roles and self-identification are altering in any way the psychiatry's approach?
Well, women have 80% of autoimmune disease. Diseases where the immune system attacks the body that is supposed to defend. It's like the Romanian army invaded Romania and started killing Romanians. That's what an autoimmune disease is. Now, who develops autoimmune disease? If you look at the personalities, there are people who tend to put other people's needs ahead of their own, their emotional needs. Their job is to look after everybody else. They're not supposed to say no. They're not supposed to be ever angry. They're also to be nice. They're responsible for the people. They must never disappoint anybody. Now, of the two genders, patriarchal cultures, who's supposed to take on that role? It's women. And that's why they have 80% of autoimmune disease. Now, it's not because of their gender. It's because of the gender role that the culture assigned to them. And that's just how it works.
As a woman, can you just say no? Maybe. Can women say just say no?
Are you asking me if as a woman you can say no?
No, I'm asking you as a specialist, someone who has experience in working with such troubled.
Well, what's it like for you to say no?
I think it's hard.
It's hard, yeah.
Yeah,
Now,
it
I
is.
have news for you. You have children?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. Well, I'm gonna give you a prediction.
Right.
When you have your child, guess what word they're gonna start using spontaneously at age 1.5, 2?
Mom?
No. That's what they're gonna say. No. Time to put your shoes on. No. Time to come to dinner. No. That's just what they do automatically. You don't have to teach it to them. They just do it. Why do they do it? Because their nature's intention is for the child to develop into an independent person who knows what they want and what they don't want. And before they can say yes, they know how to say no. They know how to say no. If they don't know how to say no, if I asked you to go out to dinner with me tonight and you didn't know how to say no, then your yes would not mean a thing. It wouldn't mean that you really wanted to come. It wouldn't mean that you really liked my company. It just meant that you didn't know how to say no. So it'd be a false experience for both of us. So we have to, before we can say yes, we have to know how to say no. Now, you knew how to say no. I knew how to say no at age 1.5, because that's what we did. Something happened. And what happened was that many people, especially girls, but many people get the message that if they are really themselves, if they really express who they are, the parents won't accept them, won't like them. And so for the sake of being accepted, we suppress our nose. And that then becomes our personality. And then we think that's who we are. That's not who we are. That's just the personality we developed in order to survive. The difficulty saying no is always because you're trying to please somebody else. And you're afraid that if you express yourself, they won't like you. Because of events in my childhood, infancy, I kind of got the message that I wasn't important. I wasn't good. But even on this recent trip, I really thought I could just do it. Say yes to all these invitations, give 8 talks in 4 countries in 8 days. It's insane. So my body said no. That's why I got this hoarse voice.
Do you sometimes wish you would listen to your own advice?
I don't know if you know the American author, William Faulkner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I just read his book, Light in August, and I copied this out. What makes a fool is an inability to take even his own good advice. But let me tell you, in this case, I've been a fool. So Sometimes you have to keep learning over and over again.
If we find ourselves troubled,
Yeah.
what form of therapy would you recommend? What are some tools that we can use in case we're not able to afford it?
Before we can solve a problem, the first question always is, what's the cause of it? Like if I take my car to a mechanic, his first job or her first job is to figure out what's wrong. So we need the self-understanding. Now, if you can't afford any therapy or counseling or books, you can go to a library or audiobooks you can listen to on self-knowledge. My books are like that. People really tell me that they get to know themselves better. I'm just one example. There are many books you can read. On YouTube, there are so many lectures and so many talks. It doesn't cost a penny. Second thing is, you can ask yourself, what kind of a life am I leading? That means, what kind of food am I eating? How do I look after my body? Do I go out into nature? How much time do I spend on the screen? Do I have addictions? You look at all these questions. Then you can develop some practices like meditation. That really helps a lot. Again, that doesn't cost money. You can read a book on meditation. You can listen to some instructions on YouTube. You can learn breathing techniques. Breath is very important. And babies know how to breathe deeply. As adults, we breathe in a very shallow way, especially when we're anxious. You can spend more time in, as I mentioned, in nature and just getting away from the craziness of city life. So you can exercise. You can do things for your body to feel more present in your body. You can keep a journal. Every day you could just record your life and how you feel and express things. So these are all ways that none of these cost any money.
I have a lot of friends and some members of my family and so on and so forth, and I've seen people that are struggling. What do you tell a person that has all the resources but also uses pretext, so to say, there's no time left? It's too late to start all of this.
I mean, it's never too late.
Right,
You know,
exactly.
we know this from animal studies and it's never too late. Unless somebody loses the ability to be conscious. So if they're demented, they're not going to change it. But as long as there's consciousness, we can become more aware, learn to accept ourselves. Anybody who thinks it's too late, that's a sign of trauma.
And in the words of Walt Whitman, who said that it's a good day to win and it's a good day to lose as well. I wanted to thank you very much for this talk. I think we've learned a lot and we remembered some important things during this conversation. And it was a pleasure for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And have a great stay for the rest of the days.
Thank you.